I can count to 5, you know. You're just testing to see
So
my...
we have beta tape, so it's about 20 minutes on each one, right? Oh, this is 30. Oh, because we use 20s, right?
Okay, you're
Okay.
on.
All right. All right, Ed. Tell me a little about yourself. How did you start all of this? You were first. You grew up in Boston, and
No, actually, I grew up here in New York.
oh, you grew up in New York. Tell me about your life in New York in the early days, growing up
Well,
there.
growing up, it wasn't a very pleasant experience that I can remember it. You know, when you grow up poor in Brooklyn and you have no money, it isn't exactly the most exciting of times. Although, I did, you know, it's like everything else. When you're a child, you don't think of the economic situation you're in. You assume that that's the way things are. So, to contradict myself, I had a nice time growing up in Brooklyn. I think when I got later into my teens and I began to look around and realize that, you know, there were other things besides Williamsburg and Flushing Avenue, then I started getting ideas of perhaps leaving New York. And I started looking at the filth and the dirt and the poverty, and then I realized that there had to be something else. So going to the movies, of course, you know, you see these wonderful places out in the Midwest, and I thought, well, great, that's where I want to go. So when I was 18, I graduated high school and I joined the Marine Corps. And one of the main reasons why I joined the Marine Corps was to travel, to get out of Brooklyn. And I did, and they sent me to Paris Island, which is a great place to spend a vacation.
So you had your experience in the Marines there.
Well, we have boot camp there. I went to, I think it was 14 weeks that I went through boot camp, and then I spent another year in North Carolina, ITR, infantry training. And then I went to California, which was my first big travel. And I went to Oceanside and Mexico, and I was beginning to realize my dream of seeing something other than New York.
Now, this was, did this give you, now this was during the Vietnam era.
This is during the Vietnam War, right. And I started off as an infantryman. So we were going overseas. Actually, I was very lucky. I was sent to Okinawa. And Okinawa is, at that time, it was under United States administration, so that it was just one big base, the whole island. And all the natives sort of geared their businesses to Marines, because basically it was a Marine base, although they had an Air Force base there, and I think they had some Army personnel that I don't recall seeing. It just seemed like everywhere you looked, it was Marines or Okinawans. So I was sent there, and we played war for about 18 months, you know, just going out into the boondocks and digging holes and playing war one against the other. We divide the battalion into 2 divisions, and then one of us with the blue against the red and that kind of stuff.
Now, although you grew up in Brooklyn and now you're in Okinawa, what was your feeling there? Was it just a feeling of being happy to be away from Brooklyn, or did you feel this was just a new life? And also the Vietnam era, this very dangerous time.
Well, I don't think, when you're 18, you don't think about, you know, your mortality, about dying. The war was just a very romantic, exciting thing. I mean, it's after you come back that it's not so exciting and so romantic, but going there, you know, you watch all these war movies, and John Wayne and everybody else is a big hero, so you think you're going to go there and do the same thing. And when you get shot, there's no blood, you know, and you make beautiful monologues and speeches, with, you know, so it's all play to us. And yeah, it was both, everything you said. It was exciting, it was a new life, it was a different world altogether. You know, you're meeting people from all over the United States, because, you know, in the service, everybody's from someplace, Alabama, California, Washington State, so these are all new experiences to me. And when you're 18, you know, everything is great, everything is wonderful.
Now, was this do you feel this was a successful time in your life?
Oh, it was one of the most beautiful times of my life, because, you know, you're young and everything is new, you remember everything. You know, they say that when you get old, you remember the earlier experiences stay with you. You forget the most recent ones. And at the time when you're going through it, you think it's, you know, it's exciting, you think things are a little tough in terms of like the training. But when you look back on it, you know, you say, you know, wonderful time. One of the best experiences of my life.
Now, you went from from the Vietnam War to, how did you get into Boston and construction? That was
Well,
another
when I got out of the
successful time
service,
for you.
when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was stationed in Quantico at the time, at the tail end of my tour, and I didn't want to go back to Brooklyn because I still had those, perceptions of Brooklyn as being poverty-stricken, nothing's going on there. It was no mystery to me. I wanted to go on, discover more. And this friend of mine, who was getting discharged at the same time I was, had an old Packard, 1952 Packard or something like that. Looked like a big, giant cockroach. And he said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I don't know, I'm just getting out." And he says, "Why don't we go to Boston? Boston baked beans." I said, "Hey, it's exciting, I'll go there." So we jumped in his car. It took us 3 days to get there from Virginia. And they had trees, and they had an ocean, so it was exciting. And any place that was new was okay with me.
Now, you developed a construction business there.
Yeah, well, when I got there, then, I started looking around. I had to face the real world. I had to make a living. And I didn't have any skills. So I noticed I got a job as an apprentice doing home construction. And I remember this man drove up in this big Cadillac. And he was a young man. He had a nice suit on, beautiful Cadillac. And I thought, gee, I want to have one of those. I want to be like him. So I think it's in my other play, Spanish Eyes, where I went into the library and took out a book on how to build your own home and had every phase of home construction.
So you built a home.
So I read it, yeah, I read it, and I read how to build steps. So my first customers were a couple who wanted a set of front steps. So I took my book to the job, and I read all page 1, step 1, and until I built the steps. And then from there, I made myself into a carpenter, and within a year, I was subcontracting my own work.
So again, now you've come from Vietnam. You went through a completely different experience there, and you started constructing a business just from books and from what you learned.
Well, books, how-to books. I feel very strongly that if we want to learn something, we can teach ourselves. I mean, I think sometimes I feel it's easier for me to teach myself because I know what level I'm at and how much I need to know before I get to a certain level. So
you didn't feel a barrier of any kind?
Well, the barrier that I had, I didn't know the first thing about what I was doing, but I felt that if they have these books and, you're supposed to learn how to build something from a book, I said, well, sure, I can learn that. So I read it and I learned it, and in about a year's time, I was subcontracting, and then I started contracting, and then I did it for about 7 years.
Now, how did you get from having your subcontracting business or your contracting business to the next phase?
Well, then I made a lot of money, and I was doing very well, and then I realized that the only reason I wanted to do all of this is because I wanted to have some money and have a nice car and some suits in the closet. And after I had all of these things for about 7 years, I realized that I was bored because, my goal was to make money. I had no goals beyond the money. And once you attain it, then you find yourself going to bars, partying every night, and it's only so much getting drunk every night. And then I was doing that for a long period of time, and then I realized, I said, geez, I got to find something else to do with my life. I was about 27 years old at the time. So then I said, I better, do something exciting. Again, I was getting to that point where I was bored with what I was doing. There's only so many bars you can go to, so many restaurants you can go, how many suits can you wear, and how many. So I didn't know what to do, and then I remember my mother was always very big on going to school, going to college, and I was the worst high school student ever. I think I broke the record of most absences. And then I thought, gee, maybe I'll go to college. That's a new thing to do. So I applied, and I got accepted in this little college up in Massachusetts. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. So I sold the business and went right into it.
And then you went into college and you studied what area? What area interested you?
I thought that I used to, I like to read, and I remember reading To Have and Have Not by Ernest Hemingway. And it's a very simple read. It looked like a 10-year-old wrote it. I mean, his style is so simplistic. And I said to myself, well, gee, I can write this. You know, this is all it takes to. So anyway, I
Like
started off
building the steps.
as an English major. And then I got into, I transferred to Boston College in Boston. And then I got involved in a school play through a friend of mine. And then I realized that writing plays is a lot quicker than writing books. Books take years. I'm always looking for the shortest route. So I thought, well, this is writing plays. That should be simple enough. All they do is people stand around and talk to each other. So I started writing. I decided that I was going to switch from writing books to writing plays. And then that's how I got started.
Everything looks to have been easy for you.
It's not easy. The decisions, I think, have been easy for me. The actual execution and getting to a point where I'm proficient at it, you know, takes a lot of hard work. It's just that I was always interested in, you know, when I lost interest in the things that I was doing, then I had a choice. I could either remain doing what I was doing. One of the things that I did do before I went to college is that one morning I woke up and I was hungover from the night before. And I'm thinking, what restaurant, what am I going to do tonight? And then I thought, gee, you know, I can't go on doing this forever. You know, I'm going to have cirrhosis of the liver or something. So I closed my eyes and I envisioned what I would be like at 85, sitting in a little rocking chair, looking back on my life. And I said, well, if you keep going the way you're going now, you know, where will you be at 85? And I felt, well, I probably have a new car and new suits, maybe a bigger house, but the same thing. And then I said to myself, would you be happy with that? If you had a chance to do it all over again, would you change your life? And I said, you know, here I am, 85. Yeah, I changed my life because I already projected what I would be like, and it was not an interesting thing. And I said, I would change it. Then I asked myself, well, what would you do? And then I thought, well, I don't know. I said, I know what, I'd go to college. My mother always wanted me to go to college. I'll go to college. Something will open up.
So your life has been really, from your feelings and your thoughts, making what you felt was right for you and moving along and then having the impetus to go and do these things. What drives you to do these different things?
I don't know. I just think that, you know, it's that old cliche, life is very short, and I hate to find myself as an old man and look back on my life and say, gee, you blew the whole thing by playing it safe. And believe me, there were times, you know, and you're broke, and I knew that once I gave up the construction business, I was going into the poverty level again, but with a different outlook, and I had a different mindset, because I already knew, you know, it wasn't like I was born rich and I had to go to being poor. I already knew what it was like, so I knew what I was getting myself into.
So you didn't mind being poor, it was doing what you
Because
felt
I was
right
going to do
for you.
something that was going to be a new, exciting thing, you know, going to college. I mean, at 27 years old, everybody else was 18 years old. And I said to myself, I'm not going to be a 27-year-old going to school with 18-year-olds. I'm going to be an 18-year-old. And you know, I was going to be 18. And all my friends were 18-year-olds.
Did you find it difficult?
No, I adapted right away because I wasn't going to go there with the mentality of, like, I know more than you know, and son, and I'm going to take you under my wing. And I just, you know, went to all the parties and I did all the crazy things you do when you're 18 years old. And two of my best friends are my old college chum. Of course, now they're like 33, 34 years old, married and kids, and you know. But I met them when they were 18, and I was like 27, 28 years old.
Ed, how did you get into writing your plays? Now, you know, you did something really unusual, where you had Spanish Eyes, and now you have this play on, and you also have the film. How did all this come together? In your plays, what are they basically about?
Well, I think usually something that interests me. And this play here is based on an incident when I was in Okinawa, a woman that I met while I was there. And one day I was just thinking about it, and I don't know, I wrote like 25 pages of it in a couple of days. And then, you know, Roma, my fiancée, read the 25 pages and she liked them. And she says, hey, why don't you finish it? And I thought, well, geez, this is all I have is the 25 pages. And then she liked it, so she says, she encouraged me to go ahead, try it. So I said, all right, so I sat down and finished it. It took me about a month.
So you did this in a month, a whole
Well,
play
all
with all
total, the
characters?
first, the first draft about 4, maybe 5 weeks.
And how do you feel about yourself now that you've done that?
Well, you know, the wonderful thing about writing is that you never get bored, because as soon as you finish one project, you start a new one, and every project is different, so it has its own problems, and you're trying to figure out, you know, you're creating a life on a page that ultimately you like to see it on a stage somewhere with real live people talking, and you get a big kick out of that. So it isn't like I'm working on the same play for the next 20 years, and I would be bored stiff. You work on it, you finish it, and then you move on to another play. So right now I'm working on something else.
Now, how many plays have you written so far?
I've written 7 stage plays, 8 stage plays, and 4 screenplays.
Now, the unusual thing was that you had Spanish eyes off in performance,
Right.
and you were rehearsing for the play you have now, A Silent Thunder. How did you go about, you know, getting all this together and being on stage and then also the film at the same time?
Well, I had to put the film aside because I was in rehearsals with Spanish Eyes. Now, once we got Spanish Eyes up on its feet and it was running, then we went into rehearsals for Silent Thunder. And I had time in between because, you know, once the other show is running, Playwright is basically useless. You just go out there and you watch it, and there's nothing much you can do. So I had time to, and I wasn't that involved because John Capoletti directed, and he's a very, take charge type of guy. So I had no problems. And you had a good producing. You have John Raymond and Michael Tolan. So, you know, makes it easy. All I had to do, I was like somebody who drifted in when I was called. I come in. I think I came in maybe 3 times during rehearsals.
Now, when you see the play, is it really the way you wanted it to be?
It's really, you know, you envision certain things, and then of course when you see a beautiful production like this with the sets that they have, the lights, and it's always more. It's always more somehow, you know.
But is it you?
It's in me personally. Well, I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of myself in the character. I see a lot of the things that I did that Nestor Carbonell is doing. But sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't.
But do you enjoy the character
Oh,
and the way
yeah,
the play is?
absolutely.
How does it make you feel?
I guess it's probably more like, a father watching his son graduate. You know, you go to the graduation and they have the caps and gowns on and you feel very proud because that's your kid out there. And basically that's how it is. Yeah.
From what I can see here, now with the plays and with, these are portrayals of yourself. Would you have changed any of this?
The play?
Now that you see the play, you see how this is done, would you have changed any of your life?
My life? No, I wouldn't have changed my life or the play. I mean, everything so far, no, I mean, I still are going on that same, idea that everything is new and new plays. Maybe next year I'll be writing a new play that I haven't thought about yet.
So you really think of your plays very quickly or sporadically and write them out?
Well, sometimes I think I have like a file of ideas of plays that I hope that I'll live long enough to write them all. I don't lack for ideas because if I think of something that I like and I don't have time to write it, to play, then I just do an outline of it very quickly and put it away. And if the play keeps calling me in, like, you got to write that play, then I'll just take it and write it. Otherwise, they try to wait in line until I get to it.
Now, being Puerto Rican and coming from Brooklyn, did you feel this was a barrier to you for your life?
No, I think because I came here when I was 9 years old, and I went to school, and the language has never been a problem, and I have never found any barriers or obstacles, only the ones that I've created, or, the economic ones. So if you want to go somewhere, live somewhere, you don't have the money, you can't do it.
So for people who want to do something like that, what's your advice, like what you're doing?
Just do it, or at least take a shot. It's, like when you're old, if you, like I said, if you're old and you're looking back on your life and you say, I should have done that other thing, well, I think you get a greater feeling knowing that if you did it and you you failed, it's a better feeling than thinking, maybe I could have changed my life, maybe I could have been successful at it. So I think you just do it. And hopefully you're in a position to do it without, you know, hurting someone else.
Where do you want to go from here?
From here, I'd like to go to Broadway.
I'm sure you have a good chance.
Well, I'm hoping from here that, you know, we'll move the show to an open-end run, which is, I think, what we're all shooting for. And hopefully next year have another show here on the same stage.
Good. So the future is just more of the same, and
More of the
Ed
same,
Lopez.
but it's not the same. It's always a little different, you know. It's always like the first time, because I put on Spanish Eyes.
How do the
when it
two
went up.
differ?
Well, they're two very different plays.
In that,
One is about you know, a young Marine trying to find some place to belong, finding his own identity, and the other one is about a young Puerto Rican man who was raised in Puerto Rico by his grandfather, and the grandfather brings him here, and he marries an American woman, and the clash of cultures, you know, trying to adjust in the assimilation, and ultimately the losing of the old for to obtain the new, and that's what the Spanish Eyes is all about. So it has elements that are familiar to one another, but very different.
now this is again something that happened in your life or something similar.
Yeah, well, the grandfather was very close. It was based on my grandfather, although the situation itself was never my situation. The grandfather was very real, because I used my grandfather as a role model.
And the film.
The laureate, actually, it's about a Russian. It's a Russian writer, like a Solzhenitsyn type, who comes to the United States, always wants freedom, freedom to write. And he finally comes to the United States only to find that he's lost in, you know, he's a no one. Because here in this country, it's not so much, if you're not news, then you're not marketable. And this man is a writer, political writer, comes here, and after 5 years writing his masterpiece, nobody's interested, because it's about politics and it's dated, and so he's just very disillusioned with the system. But it's only because of his own basic, you know, egoism, and thinking of himself as this, you know, looking for celebrity and looking for fame, and he doesn't realizes this till the end. So the laureate is a very different story.
And
although it's about a writer, and I'm a writer, so, you know, I drew a lot of my own experiences, put a lot of them into the film.
Now, which was written first, the film or the plays?
No, the plays were written first, and the film was written afterwards. We're talking about these two particular plays. Yeah, these two were written first.
Good. So, do you see yourself one day as a, you know, major writer, playwright, and future in Beverly Hills and that sort of thing?
Well, no, not Beverly Hills. I like California, but only because of the weather, because of the palm trees, and because I was born in Puerto Rico. So I see a palm tree, and to me, it's like nirvana. You know, it's like a tranquilizing effect. I just feel like this is home. So I like California. As far as, I want to be successful because I want to be able to see my plays on stage, to that effect. And I like to be able to pay my rent, you know, have a few dollars in my pocket. So in that sense, yes. As far as major playwright, I don't know what that is. Maybe when I get there, if I ever get there, then I'll know. But right now, I like to be able to finish a play and know that it's going to be produced. That I think is what every playwright really wants, in addition to paying his bills.
Tell me just briefly, what kind of guy can you describe yourself as, or, you know, what kind of man can you describe yourself as?
Geez, that's, I would say, you know, I think I've come to a point in my life where I think what my priorities are and what's important in my life. My family's important, my friends are important, and writing is a means to keep myself entertained. So I see writing that it's a very entertaining. I get up in the morning, I look forward to it. So I would say fairly content. I mean, can't think of anything now except maybe a few $1 million that I would want, but I would say relaxed.
And where do you get time to do all of this? You know, the writing and thinking.
Well, I make sure that writing comes first. I work out the situation so that if I need money and I have to go out and do something, I do it, but nothing that's going to tie me up for any length of time so that I can always come back to the writing. So anything that I do is just sort of subsidizes my writing.
Okay. Now what we need is 2 shots. It's behind
Every time something breaks in the house, then
for the family.
and I have to go and do it, yeah.
Okay. Does Rome encourage you with a lot of your writing?
Yeah, sure. She's the one that if I hang around a day or two, she says, "Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you writing
Really?
something?"
So Rome is quite an inspiration
Oh,
to
yeah,
you.
she's a real driver.
That's great, though. Well, you know what they say, behind every great man is a great woman.
Well, I don't know if I'm behind her. She's behind me, right?
They do say next to
Now,
every...
It's the biggest event in the movies since the 1964 World's Fair. Over 90% of the United States population is invited. It covers 62,000 square miles in 30 states. Your vision of home entertainment and appliances will never be the same. Joan 28 Normal got the biggest grand opening in five-state history. 17 new remarkable stores and our greatest prices ever. Alcohol and drugs, explosive chemicals, shouting thousands of families. Seafield Center has treated
In their 20s or if they're 2 years old and they don't understand what's going on. So it's, again, very many different choices.
I'd like to ask Ken a question. Kind of seems like all a big game too. Did you ever feel guilty about it? That you were like kind of messing with someone's head or people?
As I mentioned earlier, initially I felt guilty and then I felt guilty for not feeling guilty. In my particular case, I think I felt as long as I was not interfering. And that's just how I consciously felt. As long as I was not creating a negative or maybe a paradox in anybody's relationship, no, I did not feel guilty.
Do you have a new lover now?
Yes,
Do you still see the old lover?
yes.
How does your new lover feel about the fact that you still see your old lover?
They are now beginning to express some concerns because we are now entering a new level of commitment.
That means you're thinking of marrying the new guy?
There's a possibility.
Not as long as their warships are armed.
We're heading towards Central Square. There's like a big
Focus on Playwright show.
what is your cameraman's name?
Okay.
Oh, this is
Mike,
directly
will you be able to track if he moves, or you need him
If you do that,
stationary?
you're going to lose.
He can move and you can
Okay.
follow?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, do you get into the Puerto Rican? Yeah, Puerto Rican Zach knows.
Okay. Yeah, what can you do there? So you can't learn that? Okay. I just did. Yeah.
Look, I was dumped in the orphanage.
I was dumped in an orphanage when I was a baby, maybe at 4 weeks old.
It's rolling.
Not to understand, Santana-san.
Look, I was dumped in an orphanage when I was a baby, maybe a few weeks old. And they don't teach you nothing there. I mean, they give you food and clothes and a place to sleep. That's all. You can't learn there what you're meant to be, right? Well, like in your case, you're Okinawan, right? Well, you can only learn that from your mother and your father, right? And from living here. But one thing you do learn in this States, you gotta come from somewhere. Because the minute you walk down the street, someone's gonna ask you, what are you? And if you say you're an American, they're gonna say, yeah, I know that, no, but what are you? Where are you from? You know, where your parents come from? And when you're from an orphanage, you're from nowhere. I remember when I was a kid in the orphanage, we would divvy up into groups. And the black kids would go around braiding their hair, call themselves Africans. And we'd go around jiving, walking around with our backs hunched, slapping each other in the hands. Because that's the way we thought the Puerto Ricans acted on the streets and in movies, you know? I mean, what did we know? We just copied everything people said was Puerto Rican. So one day, when I was 18, I went to Puerto Rico. And I found out I wasn't Puerto Rican at all. See, when I went into my Puerto Rican act there, they laughed at me. They couldn't understand my Spanish. They just laughed. They laughed at me like I was a clown. And that's when I realized that I didn't belong, right? So I stopped being a Puerto Rican. And I joined the Marine Corps. They gave me a uniform, you know that? And nobody cared what I was, because I was a Marine. That's what I am. That's something. It's just I don't have use for those words anymore. I don't even know why I brought this up. It's just, why don't you try and get some sleep? Right?
Okay.
All right, that's good.
You want me to do the whole thing from here?
Huh?
Walk around, when you walk around.
Start it where you started.
Okay.
Start it where you
They
started.
can follow, right?
He can follow you some.
Okay.
All I'm saying is we don't want to upstage you.
You won't tell nobody. Eh? Oh, that was stupid. Who are you gonna tell? First, you gotta understand I'm a good Marine, okay? I'm as good as anybody. I went to boot camp. I've seen some action. And I've done a job when I had to. I've even been decorated a few times, you know? I know slouch. You know, it's important you know this. I don't want you to think I don't pack the gear. As tough as any of them. But you know, when they first sent me over to Vietnam, I was just a boot. Fresh out of basic training. I didn't know nothing. You know, I had less than a year in. Anyway, we were out in the field. And the company commander says he's got some reports that there was enemy activity a few miles north of our camp. And the lieutenant asked for some volunteers to check out the area to see if the reports were true. So me and 2 other guys, we volunteered. I mean, what do we know? We just figured it'd be easy duty. I mean, anything was better than digging trenches for latrines, right? Anyhow, 3 of us and a sergeant, we set out to reconnoiter the situation. When we got about half a mile from the camp, all hell broke loose. The bullets flying from everywhere, you know? We didn't know where to go, so we just stayed put, hoping that they wouldn't come after us. I mean, we were scared shit, the 2 of us. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be that way. They weren't supposed to be there. They were supposed to be miles up north, and they were there. They were all over the place. And I figured that was it. It was all over. I mean, I've never seen anybody get killed before. And all of a sudden, 2 of my friends are dead, and we're next. And Keller knew it too. He kept looking at me with big eyes, wondering what we were going to do to stop it, right? Well, the sun was going down, so we dug in, right? We dug and dug in that ground till we couldn't dig no more. I kept hoping that the guys at the camp, they would have heard the shots and they would come and help us. Nobody came. It was just the two of us in a jungle, in the dark. I couldn't even see a hand in front of my face. It was so black. Then they started, you know. Hey, America, give up. You're gonna die, that kind of stuff, right? Well, I never prayed before, but I was praying that night, you know. I remember what they taught us at boot camp. We had to be tough, right? And no Marine ever gave up. Well, I never figured it was gonna be like that. You know, alone and scared in the middle of nowhere, mosquitoes eating your eyes out. I didn't want to die. I mean, not then. Not then. It just wasn't fair. I hadn't lived yet. I was 19 years old. And I hadn't done anything or seen anything. I mean, if I died, nobody would ever know I existed. There wouldn't be a place to send my body, right? No, I thought I'd given up. And then I remembered what they taught us at ITR. Recon patrols don't take prisoners. And I knew they weren't about to take any. So I just lay there in that hole that I dug. And I died. And every time I hear a branch crack or a bush rustle, I died. I died 1,000 times that night. And then Keller started calling out to me, right? At first he just wanted to make sure I hadn't run out on him. I mean, he was scared too, I guess. And then he kept calling, and then told me quiet, but he just kept calling. And then the VC picked up on it, and they started calling me by my name. Hey, Santana, why you want to die? He kept it going all night. At least until I dozed off. Then I heard it. Crawling. The body scraping against the ground. I knew that they were coming for us, even before I heard them. They were real close. So I grabbed my rifle and I aimed it at the noise and I fired. I couldn't see them, but I could hear their screams as the bullets would find them. And I fired at the flash of the rifles. And I fired at everything until I had nothing left. And then I just leaned back against the wall of the hole and I waited for him. And I waited for him until I saw the first leg come through the trees. Then I heard footsteps. A lot of them. And this figure stepped at the edge of my hole. So I closed my eyes and I just waited for it to come. But it didn't come. Instead, I heard my name. Hey, Santana, you all right? So I opened my eyes, and there was Corporal Bridges staring down at me. He helped me out of the foxhole, right? And then I saw what I'd done. I mean, it was Keller, and he was just lying right next to my hole dead, and there were bullet holes all over him. I never heard him. I didn't know that he was out there. I mean, he was just lying there with his head chopped off.
Okay, and that's cut.
That's fine, I got one. I'll just get you guys.
Okay, good.
flag.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nestor, tell us, how does acting this character make you feel inside?
Well, there's a monologue that I do, which is about identity and about finding your identity. And this guy that I do, this character, has basically no identity. He's a nobody. It's kind of a personal thing to talk about, but I do draw from my Cuban heritage. My parents are both Cuban, but I was raised mostly abroad, and I've never been to Cuba. So that's obviously, yeah, I do draw from that when I talk about my identity.
Now, do you, now you've gotten to know Ed quite well, and how, knowing him and knowing what he went through, did that make doing this part any easier for you?
Well, I think you got to be careful also because it's not totally autobiographical. But there are some things that I did ask him about, how he felt, that did help. But not everything is, autobiographical. It's, but it definitely helped a lot to have the playwright there and actually ask him questions about what Marines, really like, how they behave, what it was like in Okinawa in 1966. And I mean, that was very key just to know the background and stuff like that. So.
Can you draw any feeling from him, in putting in your acting out, your role? Because it's so intense. Do you feel that intense feeling from Ed?
Ed's very laid back. He's very, but there's definitely the quality. We went through a rehearsal once where we just tried different things and a lot. We were playing one scene a little angry, or my character, I was doing a little too angry, and there really was no reason to harp on this lovely girl, Okinawa girl. Ed came in and he said, you gotta understand, this is a beautiful young girl, and and he said, and he just, the way he started talking about this girl that I think he met in Okinawa, it was just sort of softened my idea of how this character would treat this young girl, and that definitely helped out a lot. It's definitely helped out in the first act, where it's really important to establish, the relationship early on.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That was wonderful. Tell me, this is, to me, an exciting play, and having spoken with Ed, he's an intense person. How do you put all of this together as a producer?
Well, I think that having met Ed and just working with him on this one show, my feeling was that here's a new playwright with a voice, with something to say, something meaningful to say, and we were quite excited about producing this play. I think he's someone to watch. I think there's a lot more there that has to come out yet, but we're very privileged to have done this, and it's a premiere. It's the first time being seen anywhere.
Now, do you think that, this play, of course, this is, as you say, it's the first time being done. Do you think that there's a place for this type of play now in the New York City culture and theater?
Oh, I think so, yes. I think the success of something like Driving Miss Daisy, which is a very personal, small play about relationships and about people, and this is basically that same kind of play. Also, seeing the different cultures come together is very exciting. As with Miss Daisy, you had a similar situation there, and we see this with this play. And I think, yes, there is a need for this kind of work. As I said before, it has a distinct voice. It has something real special to say, and I think, yes, there is a need for this play.
That's fine. Okay, great.
Like, you want me to throw some light or what?
No, there's enough light. Maybe plug that one in.
That thunder ain't silent.
Now, this is a real theater, isn't it? It was built for theater?
No, this originally was, I think it was a rectory,
Well,
rectory.
the church next door.
Ed, honey, they're right.
Okay, so anyway, you see the wall up there, the way it hangs up there? I was very surprised to see that because I didn't realize. I knew they had the space up there. I didn't know
You mean
that.
all that space?
Yeah,
In
like.
fact, they have a roof.
No, see, they have the space up there to fly the wall.
Right. You didn't realize
It
that.
never occurred to me. I thought the wall was going to slide over, like it was a pull it from both sides.
Yeah, it's like the last night. They looked at it, looked like that got stuck.
Yeah. I don't think it's so much it got stuck. It's just that they're rehearsing the smoothness to get the whole thing.
No, but during the performance.
Yeah, no, I don't think it got stuck. I think they always do that. It goes up.
Okay, Mike?
and then it goes up.
That's good.
Yeah,
just a different little angle. I had encompassing the whole stage, now I moved in a little bit.
I just think that they have the presence of mind to be able to.
Yeah, see, that was the thing. She went with it. She just, she started, when she realized that she pretended to act.
Speak, just lean back a little bit, okay?
Sure.
Okay, speak.
Yeah, I'll move forward.
Sure. Really, as we said, I'm going to write the intro into this is, behind every great man, or now use it beside, there's a great woman. How is it to work and also give ideas to a person like Ed?
It is one of the most rewarding things in the world. Ed and I love each other very much, but to be together, we've had to make some tremendous sacrifices. Financial. We're not married. We can't be married because we don't have any money. And that is the life of a playwright and his girlfriend. But the rewards more than make up for the sacrifices that we've had to make along the way. Ed talks about his life being motivated by excitement, avoiding boredom and all that. It's been a wonderful life, and I hope to continue it for a long time. As far as giving him ideas, I don't think I inspire the ideas as much as serve as a sort of a motivator, a pusher, a driver, a catalyst. If I had a cattle prod, I'd be using it. I don't seem to need it as much anymore because Ed is extremely motivated these days. He has gotten into a groove, and he's very disciplined, and he wakes up early, and he goes right to the word processor. He's almost got that, it's like almost, he'd kill me if I said idiot savant. He's nuts about writing. He loves it so much that he ignores things. He's almost a little nummy in his head. He loses things. He's flighty. It's that Einstein behavior that he's got. He's so into his writing and his thoughts and his plots and ideas and characters that he doesn't think about anything else. If I need him to pick me up at work, let's say, we have one car, he has to pick me up. Sometimes I'll wait hour, 2, 3 hours, and he'll finally show up. He doesn't answer the phone. He puts the machine on because he doesn't want to be disturbed. And where the hell were you? And he says, well, I'm sorry, I was really into this one idea that I had, But you excuse that. That's one of the sacrifices we do have to make. But watching the play, I can see this play 1,000 times, never get tired of it. He has so much life and so much feeling. He's just a wonderful person. Somebody said about Ed that he has an old soul, in that he's got wisdom so deeply embedded into him, and you do feel that through his words and through his plays.
That's wonderful. That's a great run. It's perfect. I just need over her.
As little children,
Yeah,
they did the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And then at the end you said, I forgot what it was, but it was Shakespeare. It fitted in
Right,
so well.
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. Well,
So-
Ed encourages me too. It's not, a one-way street here. It's not a one-sided thing. He's 100% behind me, and we do need money, and I guess I could be doing other things that would earn money, but I do what I enjoy doing. He does what he enjoys doing, and you pay a bit of a price, but I think at the end of the line, you'll find it's worth it. And so, if we're not millionaires, who cares?
Yeah.
We've had a life together that is so rich and so rewarding. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Mrs. Roker.
automatic and stuff?
Yeah, that's right. So right there is fine. Right there is fine. So don't forget you're going to walk all the way down here and then...
And keep going after you get it.
Right, keep going even when you get inside.
Whenever you're ready.
And remember, don't look.
Right.
Okay, go, go.
Okay. Ready? Yeah.
Alrighty, here we go.
Nice speed.
Okay, here it is. And this is stand up, take one.
You gotta bring that mic a little closer to me. It's
Oh,
good
up here? Okay. Okay. So Playwright is concerned. He's looking forward to his future with great anticipation. Plans to write more plays, and he's looking forward to more. Okay, here we go. And this is take one. As far as our playwright is concerned, he's looking forward to his future with great anticipation. He says he wants to write more plays and have many more opening nights. For Community Line, this is Kendrumball. Okay, now the problem there is it? Okay.
Because you know, it's not hot in one
it
spot.
doesn't make me
right
look
in
Yeah, you're even.
darker, you know what I'm saying? You know, because I hate to look, you know, really sunburned, you will say.
It's rolling.
Okay, here we go, and this is two. Okay, two. As far as our playwright is concerned, he's looking forward to his future with great anticipation. He says he wants to write more plays and have many more opening nights. For Community Line, this is Kendrumball.